The P&Z meeting, it was a meeting run amok. And today we're going to talk about the Planning and Zoning Commission on Straight Talk. I'm Bunker Bob. This is the Bunker Bob Show. Well, good afternoon, and thank you for being with me today. This is Straight Talk with Bunker Bob, and today I have again with me the Doctor of Finance, the honorary Doctor of Finance, that'd be Scott Turnbull, with me today, and we're specifically talking about a Planning and Zoning Commission meeting that occurred last week that, for lack of a better word, was a meeting run amok. Now, it's important to understand the context of this meeting, because this is because the chair of the meeting had an overwhelming conflict of interest by being part of the meeting to begin with. And let me explain what I mean by that. When you understand that her husband, this is her last name is Swasey. What is her first name? Leslie Swasey is the Planning and Zoning committee's, I guess she's vice chair, but the chair was not present, nor were most of the members. They did have a quorum, and the problem with the meeting was that they were dealing with a couple of issues, and one of those issues had to deal with something that Mrs. Swasey had a personal gripe about. And the reason why I can say that with confidence is because her husband sent a letter to neighbors and to the city council, and basically talked about a winery that had been put in, or that had been approved, and that was being part of this community, added to the community. And this is something that was right next to their home, and obviously they did not like what that this winery was going in. And when I was mayor, this couple, the couple is the Rossinis is their last name. They had wanted to put this winery in, and they came to me as mayor and talked to me about it and what they were planning. One of the things that they wanted to or were talking about doing was putting an event center in, and that was something that neighbors just simply didn't want to have around. And even though on the front part of their property, they could have put an event center in. There's nothing the city could have done to stop them. Ms. Rossini said, "Well, if the neighbors don't want that, we don't have to do that." And what's interesting about this whole issue from the get-go is that this is the kind of business that the citizens of McLennan Chisholm have been saying that they want. This is a small boutique type of business. It's a quiet, for lack of a better word, because now there are neighbors who say that it's not a quiet business, and so they don't like the fact that there is a house on this property, that the house is being used as a kind of a bed and breakfast or a place where people can rent it out, but their arguments are that the people who are renting it are too loud, yada yada yada. Again, there's nothing preventing them from renting that property out in that way. So the people who are opposed to it are not necessarily directly next to the house in question or anything like that. The bottom line is that what was coming before the city council was something completely different from what it turned out to be. I want to just say that the Rossinis are a couple who live in High Point Lake Estates. They are people who live locally. This is a very successful businessman, and basically, for lack of a better word, I think this is kind of a passion for him, but basically, and I told them this when I was mayor. I said, they've got silly money, and so he wants to build a winery. So he's going to build a winery, and a winery is something that he's passionate about, wine and things like that. When we did the city survey, one of the things that we asked was, what kind of businesses do you want businesses? And if so, what kind of businesses do you want to see in the city of McLennan-Chisholm? Overwhelmingly, citizens answered that they wanted to see the smaller boutique type businesses, which is what this winery would be. It's something unique. It's something that is almost a destination for our city, and offers the opportunity for people to engage in wine tasting and things like that. And that's what the Rossinis were attempting to do. And that is what they're moving forward in doing. But the Swaseys are very much against it, and as are a couple of other neighbors. So the issue really is not whether or not they have a right to do it, because they do have a right to use the property as it's zoned. The issue is that, number one, Leslie Swasey, at the beginning of the meeting, basically nominated herself to be the vice chairman of the committee, and she was chairman of the commission, and so she nominated I forget what the guy's name is that's the chair. Charles Rode. What? Rody. Thank you, Charles Rody. She nominated Charles Rody to be the chairman. And what?
I'm sorry, Bob. His first name, I believe, is actually Robert. His last name is Rody.
Okay, it's Robert Rody. That's the chair. And so she nominated him to be chair. She nominated herself as vice chair, and then proceeded to and they voted her in. You're going to see how many people were attending the Planning and Zoning Commission. How many members are there on the Planning and Zoning Commission?
There's a total of 7, 5 permanent and 2 alternates, because P&Z commissions are notorious for having people not show up, so they always designate alternates to come in and fill in to ensure that a quorum is met.
Right.
And our P&Z is no different than any of the rest. A lot of people are on it and apparently aren't dedicated to serving on it. It's just, if it's convenient, they do it. If it's not, they don't.
Absolutely, and we saw that, and with Planning and Zoning Board of Adjustment, it's kind of the same problem. The biggest issue is that every time a Planning and Zoning Commission or the Board of Adjustment has a meeting, by law, the city has to pump money into a public notice that goes into the paper. A completely ridiculous law that is in place, and I'm going to do a show on that coming up. Because it is a ridiculous law, but that costs the city real money. And so when you don't have a quorum at these P&Z or BOA meetings, it costs the city money. Bottom line, she was the chair of the committee, and when the issue of the winery came up, understand her husband had just put out a letter. Is there anything about the letter that you want to highlight that's important about that?
Yeah, 1 second here.
Because I can bring up a portion of it if you want to focus on that.
Hi, my name's Charles Swasey. I'm your neighbor living at 262 Meadow Park. You likely remember me from last year's efforts to avoid having a winery, bar / event center / cottages at 401 South State Highway 205. Unfortunately, last year's efforts were not successful because we had a city council that was not willing to listen to the citizens. And I'm going to stop reading there because that's a blatant falsehood.
That is true. That's absolutely. Absolutely.
It was, the plan was first brought to the city council on advice of our city planner. The Rossinis listed everything they could possibly ever want to do with the acreage behind the winery. And that's the reason that they said, well, okay, we've got the house, winery, event center, maybe put cottages back in the back for rentals. We're just kind of spitballing here and throwing it out. And they should have never have done it. They shouldn't have been advised to do it. But that was the way our previous city planner did business. His goal was always to get to yes. And there are times when no is the appropriate answer. So, the original thing came out, we had hearings, we had people upset. After, the Rossinis said, okay, we're going to do away with all that stuff back behind. We're not going to do it. The event centers, the cottages, that's gone. The house is pre-existing. And there's no ordinance in McLennan Chisholm that says that a home cannot be used for a short-term rental. So, a single-family 2.5 acre parcel, it can be used as that type of rental property. There is nothing that can be done about it.
Well, and going back to the point about his point that the city council didn't listen to citizens, this was something that was in the survey, and we had coffee chats when I was mayor. Adrian Balcom created something called coffee chats where citizens would come in, and I remember Mr. Swasey, and I remember other neighbors who were frustrated with the idea of having this winery, and it was specifically because they were going to have this event center. And Mrs. Rossini came and she actually sat down and listened to these people. The city council didn't have to address the issue because she was listening. She said, well, we'll take that away. We don't have to do that. We want to work with you. The Rossinis also made sure that sent out their phone number. They said, anyone who wants our phone number, call us. We want to be good neighbors throughout the entire process. So it wasn't just the city council that was listening. It was also the Rossinis.
Right. And that's the thing. What we passed, and this letter says that P&Z denied it and then recommended denying it and passed it on to us, and we voted in favor of it. And what we conflict, she is a neighbor that lives right next to it. She is a neighbor who would receive a letter from the city stating that if any zoning change or ordinances were going to go into a place that she needed to be notified of, or if the ordinance requiring anybody within so many feet, they have to be notified. I'm boring myself.
Oh man.
So because she had a direct relationship to this issue,
yep,
she should have recused herself and left the room.
Right, absolutely. Or she could have. She could have spoken as a citizen. She could have just stepped down off of the chair, stepped down off of the commission, and spoken as a citizen, which her husband did. Right?
No,
not at the P&Z.
No,
he just wrote the letter.
Not at this meeting. Not.
No, I thought he did.
That was Skinner that spoke. It was at the,
okay. Is that because the video is not? It doesn't move, even though it's
show who it was.
Yeah, even though it's a PTZ camera, they don't move the camera.
But
anyway,
I may be wrong. I watched it. This is one they actually recorded.
Yes, this is.
So I watched it there, but she had a direct conflict.
Yep.
Now, she acknowledged that she had a conflict, and when she was asked a question, she stated, I don't know how much I can answer.
Well, and I've actually got this, so why don't we watch this? And so what I've done is I've taken clips. of this meeting and highlighted most of what you're going to see is going to be the members of the Planning and Zoning Commission overstepping their boundaries in doing something that they're directed not to do. So let's watch this.
One thing I'd like to note is that this is not a zoning item, and so there really should be limited or no discussion on the actual use of the property.
That's the city planner talking.
Plats, basically, the state of Texas says the plats have to be approved if they meet zoning and subdivision regulations. And so we found this plat to meet the zoning and subdivision regulations, and that it must be approved by the commission. And it, basically the use and everything and zoning that was discussed prior to and approved by the council really shouldn't be part of the discussion today. And so the discussion should be limited to the lot configuration, right-of-way dedication, utility easements, access easements, things that have to do not with the actual use and the zoning of the property.
Okay, and related to the single family, asking you as the city planner, that complies with our current platting of 1.5 acres, all of that has been?
It's 2.5, that's correct. The zoning requires a minimum of 2.5 acres, and that the lots are larger than that. They comply with the zoning.
But I do want to take this opportunity to direct some comments to the Rossinis. I think
this is
in all
Mark
fairness
Kippot
to your fellow neighbors, that it would be an appropriate consideration for you to fully assess and understand the impacts of your current business plan as you move forward and how the property is being utilized in the interim. The city encourages the development to include the development of a vineyard winery. I think the pathway to get there that's being chosen right now is not the best for the sake of the city. So I'll just leave it at that since it's restricted to the plat discussion. Thank you.
Mr. Rossini?
Yes.
Question for you.
Yes.
Related to stewardship of neighbors.
This is Jody
What
Wright.
are your projected hours of the winery operation? Mr. Rossini?
Yes.
What is the intention of the short-term rental once this winery is in fully operational?
I have a question. Oh, of course. There's a conflict, obviously, and this may be outside the realm of our
This is Daniel Tucker speaking.
there's obviously a conflict with this gentleman who just left. And how do we, as public servants, kind of come to a conclusion as to what's the best for, not only for you guys? I'm sorry. How do you resolve a problem like this? I'm having some problems with believing him and believing you guys at the same time, but obviously, there's a reality, but each of you share a different reality.
Sure.
I'm perplexed, to tell you the truth, on this. And if you're going to have a business, and I've had a business in my lifetime, that you want, especially in in McClendon-Chisholm, you can have a very successful business here, and you don't have to cater to any kind of element that is going to create a problem for your business. So
I absolutely agree.
help me out with this.
I will.
This is Mr. Rossini.
A couple of people have brought up comments, and I'm very willing to work with those people. That gentleman who was so angry, at the day that the city council approved our zoning, came to me and he said, "You have not heard the last of me. I will be a thorn in your side for every day that I live here."
Does he have cause for that?
This was before we were renting the property, so I can't really say, because nothing had happened. He'd been here 2 days when he moved in, and he said, "I heard this." He came to the board. He was very vocal.
I don't know. Sitting in this chair, I don't know how much I should say. So
This is Leslie
it's been a terrible
Swalge.
Summer. It has been a problem all summer, and I do know the police have been called more than once, because I know I have called them more than once, and sheriff, and I agree. Maybe we should have called you. I don't. Again, sitting here as chair, I don't feel like I should get too into this, and maybe we should talk after. But
No, I would love to do that. I would love to do that.
And I will tell you and this is where I come from and where I come from in my heart. I've had to take my 5- and 6-year-old inside because I felt like what they were hearing in our backyard was inappropriate.
Okay.
And that I cannot live next
Right.
to. And that is where I come from. But again, I think that's something that we just need to deal with.
Mr. Rossini,
Yes, sir.
I will share
Yes,
with
ma'am.
you, it is very concerning to me, the inconsistencies that we're hearing just in this room tonight, much less what you're sharing has been going on. You report there's been one sheriff's report. We're hearing from somebody that they personally have made additional calls. So I'm just questioning the alignment of information that is being received to this panel this evening. The fact that these concerns have been going on for so long, and you attest that one individual has called you, but you want to be part of the solution. I would say, Mr. Rossini, your words are not matching your actions, because if that were the case, more people would be reaching out and approaching you. We are an incredibly vocal community.
Yes.
As you're realizing. We're not shy.
Jody Wright is
We're
one of the
very
administrators of
open to,
FU, McLennan
addressing
Chisholm
concerns one-to-one.
Facebook page.
The inconsistency, it concerns me, and I know that this is off topic. I'm new to this role, trying to understand, but we are here, and regardless of what committee we sit on, we all have a responsibility to be great stewards to our community. And in all transparency with you, I don't feel that right now. And I don't see that represented by the neighbors around your property. So I think there just needs to be a lot more discussion.
Okay, and I would just like to comment. I mean, from the inconsistency standpoint, I do not see where the inconsistency is. I've only been notified one time. I've only been called by one neighbor. Carol, would you like to come up at all and talk? We had communications with them. We gave them our number. We said, call us anytime if there's anything. She never contacted us back. Said that was, and said in writing, we've got the emails, said that was the only incident we ever had.
Swalgey's acknowledged they never called him.
That they got married in Hidden Creek, and they had a wedding party. And she actually apologized to us after. She says, I'm sorry. It was because it was on a weekend. She says, I didn't know it was a wedding party. I feel bad saying it. And we were like, not at all. Not at all. You should let us know. So, again, I was made aware by the letter that he wrote only a week ago that I was copied on that letter. And like I said, I'm here and I'm willing to address it. If you think that's inconsistent, I understand that. But I don't think that I've been inconsistent. I think I'm trying to be part of the solution. So, and again, like I said, it does not make sense, as Daniel said, it does not make sense that we have a winery business and we're pissing off everybody that's around us. I don't want to do that. I do not want to do that. And I'm going to stay here afterwards, and I'm going to talk to the gentlemen who've talked to me. And like I said, we'll come up with a solution. We'll come up with steps to try to fix that. So,
if you don't rectify the problems that supposedly are having here on the back portion of the property, your winery will suffer by it long.
I absolutely agree.
It's a business adventure for you, and as you've alluded to earlier, the cost element is, I mean, just in these plans alone, I was equating how much money this costs.
Absolutely.
And I know about startup businesses. I did 3 or 4 of them. And
as have I, yes, sir.
You don't want to, to compromise your investment. And so if that back property starts to compromise your frontal property, and this is where you're going to be making your living, then, or a preponderance of it, then you have to come to some conclusion as to what you're going to do.
Absolutely.
In your best interest.
So, and I think I've been consistent from the beginning in saying that's what I want to do. Again, has there been bumps? Have I taken missteps? Yes. And that's where we're at. So, and that's where I'm trying to go forward from. I'm trying to move forward. I'll work with whoever wants to work with me to come up with solutions. But I am being misrepresented a lot in people saying that I'm going to open up a bar and have big parties and weddings and events. That's never been the plan. That's not my plan, not what I'm going to do. So I hope that answers some of your questions. Whether it convinces you or not, I don't know what to tell you.
Any other questions or comments?
So back to the city planner. Point of education for myself then. As
this is Jody Wright again.
As just understanding the role of planning and zoning, if we have a situation where somebody's been approved, but they're not being a good steward of their neighbors, of the city in general, what is our responsibility to that?
Well, it falls outside the plat before you, so it really shouldn't be part of the discussion today.
Okay.
It should be handled between neighbors in a cordial way outside of this hearing.
Okay.
Yep.
Mark Kippot, 31 Fireside.
All right. We don't want to hear from Mark Kippot anymore. That was the end of this whole thing. Mr. Kippot is a member of the Economic Development panel, I guess, for lack of a better word, where, of course, Mayor Short said that business is open, when he got elected. And so we've now got a Dollar General that's wanting to come in. I'm not sure that's true, but we'll see or whether or not that's true or not. But here is an actual couple this is a guy, by the way, who's crazy successful in business. We'll just say that. And I'm just going to be very cagey in the way I present that. And to be told by a member of planning and zoning that he's run some businesses, you have no idea the level of expertise that this guy has and the success that this guy has seen in his career. The problem, I think, is these people don't want this winery for whatever reason. And even though they were instructed twice at the very beginning of the Planning and Zoning Commission, don't talk about these other things. The use of the property is irrelevant to what's being done here. The Planning and Zoning Commission has literally used that tool while in session as a member of that body to try and denigrate and to misrepresent. And when Mr. Rossini said, "Man, I've been misrepresented," I feel your pain, brother. Jody Wright, Mrs. Wright, is an individual who is one of the administrators for the FU McLennan Chisholm page, Facebook page, euphemistically called Friends and Families for McLennan Chisholm. And now that she is a public official, and she's on this Planning and Zoning Commission, I'll start releasing some of the posts that she has made on Facebook. And they are so vile. They are so dishonest. They are so misleading. It's breathtaking to sit and watch her on a Planning and Zoning Commission browbeat and demonize a couple who is literally trying to do the right thing and trying to help our community and trying to create a great business. It is shocking. It is shameful that she was allowed to continue. And Mrs. Swasey had an obligation as chair to bring that committee back and remind them, hey folks, this is not our purpose. Our purpose today is specific to the issue at hand. The city planner said again and again, this is not what you're dealing with. And I highlighted at the very end of this, and well, let me just also say, you have people like Mark Kippot, who lives in Chisholm Crossing, who has no business talking about this, but he's on the economic development team, or what do they call it? Committee. But he thinks that so basically he's going to browbeat and demonize this couple again. One of the things that if you listen to the entire thing, and by the way, I've re-edited it so that people's mouths match their words. And I posted it on the wrong YouTube site, but I'll post it on Bunker Bob so that you can watch the whole thing. But if you listen to Mr. Rossini, at one point he goes, I may just end up just giving this up because they're trying to threaten and trying to push the Rossinis out of their business. If I'm the Rossinis, I'm just wondering. Or as an observer from the side, I'm wondering, why on earth did the Rossinis even put up with this? Why are they even trying to work with these people? If I were them, I think a lawsuit is well in place. They could sue the city right now and have standing, because right now in the city, Mrs. Wright and a lot of these other people are trying, and the Swalgeys, they are going out and and intentionally trying to harm this business, and they're doing it from an official point of view. When they sit in that seat, they have crossed the line. They want to get out of that seat. Ms. Swalji, as I said, I think Scott and I were talking about it before. She could have recused herself. She should have recused herself. And Scott said that she should have left the room, which is the standard in the state of Texas for recusal. It's not just not voting. It's not just not talking. It's literally removing yourself from the room. But she could have laid the gavel down. She could have removed herself from behind the dais, and she could have sat along with the citizens and spoken as a citizen, and she would have been in much better position, and it would have been much better for the city had she done so. Instead, not only did she contribute to the misinformation, not only did she contribute to trying to demonize the Rossinis, she allowed members of the committee to sit and be so patronizing to them. You need to know how to do your business. You need to run your business a little bit better. This is not what the community wants. It's not what happened. And the Rossinis, by the way, they've only had one call at the House. And by the way, these are irrelevant points. Am I right? I mean, all of this is irrelevant to the real issue, which is the Planning and Zoning Commission's job was to do one thing. That was to approve the plat. It was not to go into this discussion ad nauseum. What do you think?
That's the thing. And to your point that the Rossinis, a normal person would have said, "The hell with this. I'm out of here." They have been hammered since day one. And again, they've been hammered because they were given bad advice. If they had came in and said, "We want the front part to be a winery. We're not talking about the back part. It's separate. We'll come back in if we want to do more commercial or whatever. We'll come back and apply for it then." But that's not what they were told to do. So they followed some bad advice. It got everybody irate. And now they're dealing with it. They immediately, after the first time that they were berated in council chambers, said, "We're taking this other stuff out. All we're doing is the winery." And that's all this meeting was supposed to be about, was the winery and the plat and whether or not it complied with zoning and the restrictions placed on it by previous rulings of the council. It did. This hour-and-a-half meeting should have lasted 15 minutes. But instead, for her own purpose, and actually for their own purpose, because there's two of them on that dais that have an axe to grind, apparently, they violated the rules and allowed discussion to take place on items not on the agenda. And quite frankly, I think since there's a big thing about having investigations about violations of the Open Meeting Act.
Yep.
I think possibly this is one that needs to go to the
district attorney, I think that the district attorney in Rockwell County is supposed to take these complaints.
Well, yeah, but you and I both know
Right.
that she's in
Right.
political. Well, literally, she's in bed with some of them.
Well, and Mark Kippot is one of her major donors. I got a text here, and I can't pull it up, but I'll add it. But there's a picture of Mark Kippot, Leslie Swalji, and William Dahl, Councilmember William Dahl, together after that meeting, and it highlights.
What? That's Charles. That's not
Charles who?
That's Charles Swalji. That's not Swalji, Kippot, and Dahl.
Swalji. Oh, that's Charles. Okay, Mr. Swalji. Sorry,
Yes.
Mr. Swalji William Dahl and Mark Kippot are together. Thank you. You zoomed in.
That was after the
P&Z meeting.
council meeting.
After the council meeting. Which council meeting?
The week before.
The week before. Okay, so now we know why Kippot was there. Kippot.
Kippot was there because Kippot is the SME of all things, especially all things related to McClendon Chisholm.
This is so true.
And if you don't believe it, just ask him.
Yes, that's so true. I mean, if you want to know, you don't know how dumb you are until you sit down with Mark Kippot.
And by the way, just in case you're from KU, I won't even pick on an Aggie.
Say TU. That's even worse. Yeah.
SME is subject matter expert.
Yes.
It's an acronym for that.
Yeah.
And
if you do your taxes, he's an expert. If you need surgery, he's your expert. He's an expert on anything. That's absolutely right.
He even tried to tell the city attorney that the city attorney
Yes.
was wrong.
Yes.
And I'm not talking about our old one. I'm talking about the new one.
Yeah, this is a guy who practices law without a license all the time. Just watch on the FU McClendon Chisholm page. He's on there. How many times have I got him doing that? The fact of the matter is, this is a Mr. Kippot. I predict Mark Kippot's running for Bailey's seat because Bailey, I think, is done. So he wants to be county commissioner, and of course, that's what I think he's doing. His wife is on city council, and this is all politics. Politics. Why on earth would you come to a planning and zoning commission to not talk about the issue at hand? And he even talks about it. If you listen to his entire statement, he says, "I know that this is not what the purpose of this meeting is for. I want to talk to them about how they're doing their business." And which the chair should have said, "I'm sorry, that's out of order. Any comments should be directed directly to the issue of the planning."
Frankly, I'm a little disappointed that the city planner or the city administrator didn't step up and say, "Guys,
well,
you're outside." And I know that
yeah, she did. Lisa, I think Lisa was doing that. I think she was on the side. There were a couple times where they all looked over at Lisa, and I could hear her. I think you guys are all getting off topic,
but she didn't say, "You got to stop."
Understood,
and that, in some ways, that is her job.
That's not her job. That's not Lisa's job.
As city administrator?
No. As city manager? If she were city manager, yes. But as city administrator, no. Lisa, I mean, these people want to go off the reservation. That's their problem. That's the problem. That's why you don't. I mean, the Jody Wright decision, of course, she was the campaign treasurer for Keith Short for mayor. And so this is all political. I can't believe. Does she? I think she works for Rockwall School District.
I have no idea who she works for.
Gosh, I hope that's not true. That would be shocking if she were allowed to be around kids. That if she had any pull for children's education, that would be a scary thing, especially when you listen to her comments. And notice what we included in there was she asked specific questions. She asked questions related to, okay, do they comply? Do they meet the standards? Yes, the city planner was clear. Don't talk about other issues. Don't bring all these other things in. And at the end, I found it funny. She said, well, how do we get these people to comply as good stewards? And the planner's like, these neighbors need to work together. This is not your job. You shouldn't be talking about it. But she doesn't really care. Anything else on that one?
No. Well, yes, there's still one thing.
Oh, and I have one more thing on it too. I just realized.
Swasey allowed this public hearing to just flat devolve into a bashing of the Rossinis. And it really wasn't about the winery. After Rossini explained to, I think it was Mr. Skinner, that he's getting his degree in whatever winemaking is called.
Yeah.
And this is going to be his job. That's what he wants to do. So after that, it was nothing more than let's complain about the Airbnb. Well, that wasn't on the subject. In fact, even running the winery wasn't on the subject.
Exactly.
What was on the agenda, was did it comply with zoning? Are all of the easements in place? To use a now famous with the current city council, this was nothing but housekeeping.
Oh yeah, housekeeping.
And
That's
this
right.
is truly,
That's right.
in this case, it was nothing but housekeeping because, as the planner said, it complies. You cannot deny.
That's absolutely right, and it's important to understand that the members of the Planning and Zoning Commission are appointed. So when they, I think one person even said that we're as public officials. I think it was this Jody lady, as public officials. How do we? It galls me. To me, what's great is to watch the end of the meeting. I don't have it here, or I didn't include it, but watch the end of the meeting. If you recall back when Barack Obama was first elected president, and Nancy Pelosi was the Speaker of the House, and he gave his first State of the Union address. When President Bush was president, she would sit back and she would blink and she would look around. And we called her Blinky. The conservatives, we called her Blinky, and that was when Bush was president. But when Obama was president, and when he gave his State of the Union address, now Rush Limbaugh said this. I'm not gonna say what he said, but it appeared as though she was having a little more fun than she should have been. She was in a state of euphoria when President Obama was talking. Well, at the end of the meeting, or toward one of the last things on the agenda is for Ty Davenport came to have a plat approved or something like that, and that is exactly. Watch Jody Wright. Watch how she changes. She goes from this, I'm very concerned about being good stewards, to the Nancy Pelosi, this is a little too, he's Ty Davenport. And who is Ty Davenport? Well, of course, he's the guy who has the Triple Creek Ranch, who has basically signed a development agreement, got a development agreement signed with the city so that they could put 1,876 homes on 1,600 and something acres, basically obliterating our city's 1.5 acre minimum per home site standard. That was with the help, of course, former Mayor Mike Donegan and of course with his friends Steve Hatfield and Gary Moody. All these people. It's one great big. You said it in the last show. How did you state the excrement issue? The bovine.
The Texas-sized pile of mature adult male bovine excrement.
Yes, that's it, and that's exactly what this is.
Unaltered.
Unaltered. Thank you very much. But watch the end of that Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Watch how Jody Wright almost falls all over herself for this guy. And it is a sickening display. It's politics at its worst, and this is why I have this show, because it is time for some straight talk for a change, because we're not getting it from what you see at City Council or what you're hearing in the Rockwall Hilarious banner. Yes, you have one more thing?
We're going to discuss
well, yeah.
Let's do it.
We're going to do another. I want to do another show on this, and it'll be a quick one. So we'll see you next time. And so don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you want to get the update on when we're doing a show, so that you can know when I'm doing it live and know when we've done a show, so you can get caught up on the real news on what's really happening in McLennan Chisholm. Scott Turnbull, thank you again for being with me.
Sure, and
yes.
I'll be happy to stick around for the housekeeping that we need to do in the next report.
Okay, well that would be good. We have some housekeeping to take care of. It we will talk about that you're going to want to know about. So stay tuned. We'll be back in just a little bit. So thanks again. We'll see you next time.